Alright, party people. Alright, welcome back to the podcast. Back to Game and Compute. Took a little bit of some time free to kind of recollect myself. Definitely much needed. Definitely feeling good. Less foggy today. Today was a psilocybin microdose morning. So I had a very small microdose amount of psilocybin early this morning, pre-breakfast, pre-coffee, pre-everything. The coffee I have is 50 milligrams of caffeinated coffee, as well as some added chaga and lion's mane to it, and the psilocybin mushrooms were Blue Meanie strain embedded in a chocolate bar. So that's what I had early. I had bulletproof coffee. I worked out a little, I was on an empty stomach, and Sunday I didn't get any exercise. Saturday I had some yoga, and all the way up before that, I hadn't really worked out since that Monday, last Monday. So today was my first day back to exercising. I'm probably gonna get to start doing 2 days since it's the month of May. I'm still debating on that because I'm already kind of in some projects, and I don't want to create so many new projects for myself that it's overwhelming. So I'm just keeping that thought in the back of my mind for now, and seeing if I do a few days a week, 2 days, or every day for the next 2 weeks, 2 days, or I don't know. Anyways, today I'm wanting to talk about money psychology, talk more on the topic of impulsivity. So I know in the intro episode I did touch on that impulsivity topic before, so it's probably nothing new. But as far as insights into that, so how money relates to impulsivity, a lot of people realize, and I'm not judging here, but this is a big reality that a lot of people are facing, especially now in these times with the economy as it is, right? I'm just gonna be real. I know that this problem exists. I'm not saying that I'm immune to this problem. I actually feel lucky, I'm in a space that is secure, in that I don't have to worry about a lot of stuff, if something happens with my, before, with the housemates, with the roommates, where I was just this just isn't a healthy living environment and I have to move. Even if I couldn't afford a place to move, staying with family is an option. Even if, I don't have the mental health, stability to work, it's an option to not work. Even if I end up getting some kind of physical complication, I've got healthcare insurance. I'm not on the best healthcare insurance now, but I have access to it. Even if I, if I have no car, we have options of other old cars that I could still use. I couldn't, I can't just drive to and from San Diego, or to and from Vegas, or to and from, you know, too many faraway places, but I can still get where I'm trying to go. That's not going to be an issue too much. Um, so those types of things, and so I know that's not everybody's situation. Like for a lot of people, one major thing is kind of like in the way, you're most people kind of honestly get screwed by it and might not have, you know, adequate maybe like savings or retirement or funds or ability to just like make money right away. So I do know that my situation is more unique to me, but I also don't want it to sound like I'm judging people because I've definitely been in those situations too, or felt like I was in those situations and had a combination of things going on with like transmission going out while living in a hotel and then having to make a choice to like go back to roommates because my credit wasn't good enough to like get the apartment I wanted, but I could still at a certain time in life afford a certain cheap hotel motel lifestyle living, things like that, where it's like, okay, I can afford to do this, but um, once one thing got in the way, I was forced to move back with roommates, and I didn't prefer it, I didn't want that situation, but I found a place to live, and ended up going back to roommates, but not the same roommates, like a different set of roommates, at one point in my life. And so things like that, and like, yeah, my credit wasn't good, so I couldn't really get like a, a better or newer car. I couldn't really level up anything. It was more like having to take steps backwards. And yes, there were options there, and I was a student and I had money at that time through school, so yes, the money was there, but it wasn't the best. I had to make some pretty tough decisions, and I've had other decisions moving out from roommates to live in some kind of weird, uh, kind of like some kind of a weird, kind of like a, I don't know what you would call it, like a workshop, garage, kind of loft. Like, it wasn't really meant to be living in it, but I lived in it, because I was like so sick of roommates. I was like, well, this is like 500 something bucks a month, and in Southern California, that's not a lot of money at all. Like, that's like a third of what you would normally pay for rent, if not a half of what most people pay. So I was like definitely there. And then saving money, and I got into saving money and paying stuff off and finding ways to make more money and all that kind of stuff like a little later on. But most of the stuff I've learned has been out of necessity. It hasn't really been like, oh, like my parents sat me down and like trained me about all this stuff. Like, I grew up around people who were either like in super poverty, because they, maybe they didn't have the education or didn't take a career path that led them to be able to be very financially stable. So as far as like eating patterns, that was affected, like health patterns, physical health, that kind of thing was definitely impacted for them. How they were, their mood, their mental health was definitely impacted. And I was a kid, so like all this kind of stuff was coming back on me. Being around a bunch of adults who were affected by maybe not having riches and things like that. So it's like, I know it is pretty common that not everybody's wealthy. Um, that's pretty common, and most of the people I know who have wealth have worked their way up to it, and even the ones who have worked their way up to it, they still maybe aren't the best at like managing finances. Like, the debt still becomes a problem because of this issue of impulsivity. And so, I'm not trying to judge. I'm not saying like, oh, like people have money problems and they're bad because of it or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. And that's why I talk about my own life too, because it's like, I don't want to seem like I'm not in the same boat as certain people, or like I've got it all figured out, because I don't. But I mean, I feel like I can at least open up discussion, and at the very least, some points to think about. Um, the issue is people have to be ready to want to change, and I know um, usually it hits people, I think, when they run out of options. Another time it hits people is when you hit a bit of a wall. So say if right now, God forbid, but say if right now I was leaving the beach and my car wouldn't start, right? I know I have the money to tow it back to the house. I know I can sell it. I know I have the money to, well, depending on the problem, get it fixed. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to really get it fixed, because I've got a trip coming up, and this car is not a deep priority of mine. It's really on its last leg. I'm just driving it because the other cars that I have access to, somebody's borrowing one, and the other one, my parents use it, and so I don't want to take those cars, and they're in worse condition than my car. So, at least my car, I know if I had to get like to San Diego or something, like I could take a trip or two in it, I'm pretty sure, but I really don't want to, because it'll wear, and the last thing I need is to be like towing my car again. I already towed it in August. I already towed it New Year's Eve. I don't want to have another time this year where I need to be towing it. Actually, this year I'm working towards getting another car, like a new car. A new car or a new used car, and just paying it off. So that's kind of where I'm trying to get my finances at right now. I do not want to make payments on something that big. So for me, one thing is, having my goals in order, so knowing that I don't want to make payments on something big is a big thing for me. Knowing that I don't want to have to make payments. So I don't want to have credit card debt making payments. I don't want to have loans taken out making payments. I don't want to have to make payments on anything, because that makes me feel more free. It's a mental trick for myself that I do for myself. It makes me feel a lot more free to just not have to deal with that kind of stuff. Because when I don't have to deal with making payments for stuff, that means if I do need a break for my mental health, I can take a break if the money's there. If I do need to take a vacay, I can take a vacay if the money's there. If I do want to do something fun that might cost a little bit, I can afford it. So that to me is motivating enough to not have to deal with, regular expenses of bills, of things just that aren't necessities, and debt just kind of like automatically being, deducted from my account or anything along those lines. Like, I don't want anything like that. I don't want anything that looks like that to be a part of my bi-weekly experience or monthly experience. Nothing. I don't want anything that looks like that to be in my life, because it's going to become a deep problem. It's going to be more of an issue than and more of a stressor. My mind stays clear when I don't have to deal with debt, right? And I know I'm talking kind of like more so to people that might not have like an immediate need, because I know it's a lot more challenging to be both building and maintaining, financial health at the same time as trying to get out of an urgent situation. Like if I had $10 in my bank and a $5 bill in my wallet, and a broken down car and a sick kid and just lost my job and got my last paycheck, and the debt ate up all of it up, other than the $10 in my checking and no money in my savings. I mean, that would be urgent. It's like I need money now. I would need money then, like immediately. Um, and so that would be almost like one of the worst case scenarios. Is like having a situation like that, having to, for some people, having to rely on, you know, like for some people, the only opportunity that they see to use is to utilize debt to be able to try to get out of an urgent situation. Or I think it's different when someone's trying to use debt to get ahead, but it is a different feel to use debt to get out of an urgent situation, because using debt in that way to get out of a situation, it's like, okay, it's already hard enough dealing with the situation. Taking out debt doesn't necessarily solve the problems completely, because then there's still the debt that has to get paid back. And not just paid back, but with interest on top of that. So you have to find a way to get more money and then at least make the minimum payments, if not make more payments than that. So yeah, it's definitely a hard situation to have to deal with. And I don't wish it on anybody, but I know that is the reality. That's more the reality for a lot of people, is either that urgent state, or like not super urgent like that, but like maybe the income is coming in, but it's still kind of hard to make payments, and then the account's negative at the end of the month, leading to a cycle of more debt, or somewhere along those lines. I'm talking maybe here more so to the people that either have a debt cycle going on where, the pattern is that they can't really fully afford the bills at, the bills due, or that the checks that come in aren't enough because of a process of impulsive spending. Now, if you have a job where you get enough money, but you know that the bills aren't evening out, and it's not because you're in some urgent state currently, like there wasn't some major expense that just came out, but if you're at a point where it's like, yeah, you might have something that you're paying back on, like maybe the car, something like the transmission went out, you had to pay like $1,000 to $2,000 to get that repaired, parts, labor, maybe a rental car for like a week or 4 or 5 days or something, so maybe like $800 rental car, $1,000 transmission repair, something like that. I mean, that's pricey, but it's like, I'm talking like if that's an immediate expense, because like you might have to pay the deposit, either $300 to $500 deposit, just to rent the car. So that would be money out of pocket, like immediately at that point. And so, I think, I would say that's not uncommon, of an experience for people. And I think, it's not uncommon. It's not, it's stressful, but it's not something that can't be managed or maintained, right? I think a lot of people are kind of at that point. Like, maybe something urgent happened recently, and you're making payments on something. I think that's kind of the norm right now. So what impulsive spending would look like, talking to that crowd of people, because I feel like I can't really talk too much to, an urgent situation, because if things are urgent, you're not really in a mindset to kind of not deal with the impulsivity. Like, you might have to take an impulsive route just to get your needs met. And so, I'm not saying don't, but I mean, it's not usually going to help to dig the hole more, but it is movement. Sometimes, it is a form of movement, but you'll still have to go back and deal with that hole within an amount of weeks, usually. Like 2 weeks, 4 weeks. Like, usually it's not something you can put off for too long. Um, and those situations usually just kind of resolve themselves once people are kind of forced to just start getting rid of things. If a car gets repossessed, like, I'm not saying I'm happy when that happens for people or anything, because I'm not. I think it's very sad, but it's like sometimes it takes that to get out of a situation, and sometimes the impulsive spending isn't the issue. Sometimes there may not have been a spending issue. Maybe it's just an urgency issue. Like, there wasn't enough money put away to save for when some kind of urgent situation comes across like this. But maybe up until the urgent situation, things were good. So I feel like at the moment, I'm not really speaking so much to the people in an urgent state too much, but more so to people who have money regularly coming in, wanting to balance it. But like, so for example, when I was watching that Get Rich show or whatever it was called, on Netflix, I still haven't watched more by this point, but I'm still in episode 5. But when I have initially watched some episodes from that show, one thing I noticed was, the patterns of people spending. Most people in the show had a negative balance or a very shocking, surprising balance. Like, say for example, if they were getting, like, I don't know, like $20,000 a month, and then at the end of the month ending up with like $400 or something, like that. Like for a lot of people, $20,000 a month, depending on your age or what type of work you're doing, I mean, for someone making minimum wage, that's almost about 20K a month. Sorry, 20K a year, so maybe in the 30K range. And most people I know make about 50K, 55K a year, and still struggle to live off of that. I was making about 50 a year, and in San Diego that was hard to live off of. If you don't want to have roommates, that's a very hard salary to live off of. And like I mentioned, like, my car is going to be 21 years old in June. Like, I have had an old ass car. I don't make car payments. I pay my insurance. It's like $50 a month or something. But I do like to go out. I feel like I need to go out just for my own mental health. So I wouldn't say that I don't spend on things that are unnecessary. Like, for me, usually it's the Uber Eats, definitely the Uber Eats, guys. It's the Uber Eats, it's the Instacarts, it's the food deliveries, or even just going to get takeout food. I'm not impulsive with groceries so much, or Uber Eats so much, but I am impulsive just in general with, like, if I want lunch or dinner or breakfast and I don't want to cook. Usually it's related to, like, my mood and just wanting to be kind of more isolated and not having to interact with anybody in the house. So usually if it's like I have to interact with somebody in the house and I don't want to interact with anybody, the problem gets solved by buying something. It's not necessarily that I don't like cooking. It's just that I, for years, have not lived in a space where I could just comfortably just be in the kitchen cooking my meal and not have anybody come in there and talk to me, or the chance that they might start talking to me, or, like, just sometimes I'm just in a mood where I just don't want to talk to anybody. And when I get like that, it gets hard for me to just want to cook. It's like, okay, maybe there's something I could just throw in the oven real quick, and then just not have to come back. But it's like I have to come out there to preheat the oven. I have to come out there to kind of put the food in. Then I have to come back out to kind of take the food out, plate the food, clean up my dishes and stuff. It's like there's usually like 3 steps involved. And, during that process of like maybe 45 minutes or so, because it usually takes about, let's call it 20, like let's call it 30 to 45 minutes just to make an oven thing. If I'm actually preheating the oven, then yeah, a meal's gonna take about that long. Within that time period, usually people, I've almost always lived with people who are way more social than I am indoors in the house, and are really chatty and really like to talk, and they're really lonely, and so they see that I'm out in a public space and they want to talk to me. And it doesn't matter if it's my parents or who. It's always somebody, like I haven't lived in a place alone where I've actually had a kitchen to myself. I mean, I've had times where people left, like where I've had housemates that like didn't live in the house too much, or when my schedule just, luckily for me, my schedule made it possible for like my schedule made it possible for me to kind of, avoid having to interact with people, um, because they were maybe out of the house when I was cooking. But for me, that's where my impulsivity comes from. It's from my mood. Like, I know I feel kind of maybe not too good sometimes, and then I'm like, well, I don't want to put on clothes and go buy something because that takes a lot. Like, okay, I gotta get up and shower and like get ready to go. Like, my hair texture isn't the kind of hair that you can just do nothing with and just leave the house. Like, I've got to, it's a bit of an excessive process just to kind of get it looking decent enough, even with a hat on, even with a beanie on. Like, I've got to make it, it has to look at least a little, because it gets like, I don't know how to explain it, but it gets very like, not matted, but flat. like like say if I'm like laying on it or something, it'll get really kind of like flattened, and so it has no volume to it, and without moisture and without like conditioning and things like that, like it starts to just not be not be easy to manage. And so yeah, I have definitely had days where I, you know, just don't make good choices with the food purchases because, my mental health just isn't in the space to deal with people. And that to me kind of is probably one thing that I've maybe um, maybe noticed, discovered, had to kind of get into a habit of managing. Like, I do have, usually I'll just put in headphones, and I do have things like perfect bars and, types of things that I can just pull from the fridge real quick, sandwiches, pre-made sandwiches and stuff that I can just pull from the fridge real quick and just be like, I'm just gonna eat this. I'm gonna eat this thing right now, because um, yeah, I'm just gonna eat this thing right now because it tastes good, um, and it'll fill me up, and it's like enough that I don't feel like I have to, peek around corners and like avoid people. Um, and that's just, it's my own thing, but it's like it is hard to deal with. Like, it sounds like, I mean, a lot of people might not be able to understand that, but I do kind of like to be nice to people. I like to be polite to people. I don't like to feel irritated when I'm around people, and I notice sometimes I just feel really, really irritable. you know. And when I feel like that, I don't want to talk to anybody and I don't want to be around anybody. And that tends to be the time when somebody wants to come outside and start like chatting with me and come outside and start, hanging out with me, come out of their room or whatever and like, just start being around me. And it's like, I didn't come out here for this. I came out here literally to eat, and that's all I wanted to do is get my food and not have to interact with one soul. And 95% of the time, whenever I go in the kitchen, you know, people can hear me, like we keep a lot of the people in our house keep the doors open, and so it's like, and I feel like they do it just so they can hear if I'm like out and about in other parts of the house so they can come and talk to me. Because I like to stay pretty isolated most of the week, for real. Like, I prefer it. I like being creative in my own mind and just doing my own thing. And when I want to socialize, I will go out of the house and go hang out with people and go socialize that way. Usually when I'm home, I don't want to talk to anybody unless I'm on the phone or something. And even then, like, I don't even feel like I have enough space, honestly, to talk on the phone or podcast or do too much of anything without other people kind of chiming in or being around me. And I live in one of the world's most crowded, busy cities, and so it's hard to really get space to really do anything. I literally have to come to the beach. I literally have to come to the beach to podcast, especially when it's like a warmer time of year. It helps, I go to the beach to podcast because, the air is better, it's nice, it's fresh air, it's cooler air. I can podcast from the car. Like, even just now, somebody came and parked next to me, so I rolled up the window, and like, there's people coming and going, kind of parking, coming back to their cars, walking around the parking lot, walking down to the beach, getting out of the water, coming back up to their cars. So it's like, yeah, it's not like a private space or anything. Like, there's not really a lot of privacy here. You know what I mean? And even when I lived at the other place before I moved back to LA again, I was recording outside in the car, in parking lots, or outside, in my car outside of the house with the housemates. I very rarely would record inside the house. And so it's stuff like that I'm just like, it kind of gets in the way of my creativity. It kind of gets in the way of my choices, as far as spending. But I know that those are problems that I have, Like, I wouldn't spend a cent. I probably wouldn't leave the house that much if there weren't people living in it with me, Like, the reason why I leave is mostly because I just need more space. I do like a change of scenery, though. I am happier and I do feel better. It does improve my mood, especially coming to the beach and getting sun. I definitely have been making it a point to get a lot of vitamin D every day and everything. Try to get exercise, try to eat healthy, try to hydrate. Just the basic stuff, Those are basics, just try to do all the basic stuff. And yeah, I honestly haven't uh, you know I haven't really dealt with a lot of, you know, really trying to problem solve some of these things. Just recognizing it was hard enough in the beginning. And so that's a fault of my own that I'm working on, but it's like, it definitely does significantly impact me in a financial way, Um, because there are financial decisions that I make based on how I feel, um, based on what I feel like I need for myself at that time. And so I would still consider that um, in a category of impulsive spending of a form, because it's spending that I didn't plan to do or don't necessarily want to do, but I'm usually doing it out of comfort, you know. It creates a lot more comfort for me. And so, yeah, that's one thing that, I don't really know if, I'm definitely working on it, but I don't think it's gonna be the easiest thing to change. Like, I'm still working on dealing with it, I have been for a while. Um, but I think a lot of times, it seems like, at least from the show and from other shows I've watched like that, there's this one Caleb guy, and then I've also talked about Graham Stephan. I followed a lot of his content, and it seems to me that a lot of people who participate in these forms of like excessive spending and kind of not really planning their finances. A lot of people who do these types of actions, they're not really tracking what they do or trying to change it. They just know, ooh, the end of the month came and that doesn't feel good, that the money's not there. But usually, unless something urgent happens, most people might not really get to a point where they want to change it. But then a lot of people too, well, maybe not most, but I would say a lot. And then a lot of people too might actually get to a point where they do want to change it before it becomes, too far of a situation to actually manage. Um, and so then they kind of start working with their impulsive spending. And it's easy to say don't spend, but there's always going to be this kind of like psychological situation that happens, paired to the spending, and I think that's what needs to be managed, is the underlying psychological issue that's creating the impulsivity. I don't think really the main thing to manage is just stop spending, like, yeah, if you can do that, good, if you can just stop spending excessively, that's fine, you'll reach your goals in no time, but most people, I mean, I would say the way I started the process to deal with impulsive spending, the way I began it was, I was ready to work on it. I was motivated because I was like, I have all these goals, right? And the only way to reach them is going to be to get things in order the way they need to be in order. So first of all, I had to learn about finances. I had to learn about what I was even doing, how to budget. I had to learn how to budget, Like, I tried different things, like the, keep the cash in envelopes kind of stuff. And that does work. It does help. But the issue, I mean, it's not really a major issue, but I did think about it, and I was like, I live with a bunch of people who I didn't think they were going to steal from me, but I would think, if they did, or if somebody comes and robs our house and comes into my room and takes all my stuff and happens to take all my cash, I'll have zero cash. Versus, like, if I have a card, I'll be able to spend on the, the card. But, that was kind of the only thing that stopped me from making that decision with the cash, was because it's inconvenient, but then also I did think about, if something urgent does arise and I'm only using cash here, um, I didn't really have a method to kind of do that safely and easily. Now, it's not like I had a lot of bills either. I've never had like to pay separate bills, like, for like cable, Wi-Fi kind of stuff, electric, gas, water, all that kind of, like all those kind of utilities, trash and all that kind of stuff. It's always been incorporated into my rent. And so I've never had to individually pay for like separate stuff like that. Um, and then, yeah, as far as, yeah, car payments, I haven't made a car payment in golly knows how long. Like, I haven't had to pay for a car. This car's been paid off for golly knows how long. So, you know, that's not something I've had to pay for. I just really had to pay for rent, gas, food, um, and if something broke down, like car maintenance type of stuff, and if something broke down, but car maintenance wasn't like every single week or month or whatever. Like, you get oil when you get oil, 3,000 miles or 6,000 miles, depending if it's regular synthetic oil or depending how much you've been driving. Um, and then just regular mechanical stuff. Um, yeah, so those are my main expenses. My healthcare expenses were being deducted. I think, glasses. I had to pay like vision, dental. That did come out of pocket, but it wasn't like every day. It's like once a year. Um, so I really wasn't having a lot of stuff that I had to pay for. And when I did the math, I was like, these are the only things I really have to pay for. The majority of it's already getting deducted. Like, I'm paying rent, my utilities and rent are covered, and utilities are getting deducted from my rent payment. My healthcare insurance is already paid every month. Car insurance is an automatic payment every month. um, Things like gas, food, those are the things I need to buy. So I didn't really have any other expenses. Really, I didn't. I made more expenses for myself, but those were the only things that I had to pay for. Everything else, I mean, I was contributing to retirement as well, but that was automatically deducted, and then taxes taken out of my paychecks, and then every tax season I would still owe and still have to pay taxes, so I'd have to pay for taxes. But yeah, I really wasn't doing anything. I wasn't needing to pay for more than that, and I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but it wasn't that expensive. And so I was like, I did that for a couple months. I was like, this is how much I need to live. And I started noticing, I was like, this is back before I started budgeting or thinking about money or even looking at my account properly. And I would just spend like whatever, you know, I wouldn't even keep track, And I looked at it and I was like, this is how much I need. This is how much I need to have. So I would keep like mental note. I would be like, okay, like, if I count in all that, let's throw in some other automatic charges. I wasn't being realistic about it though, but I was like, let's just say I have 3 app subscriptions a month. Let's call them $5 to $10 each. So let's say $30 of subscriptions per month, and let's throw in there, that I'm gonna go out to eat once a week and pay $25. So we'll throw in an extra 100. So I would maybe calculate like, let's say $130 extra a month, and I was like, I should still have hundreds of dollars left. And at the end of every month, after even doing the math and stuff, I was like, I still don't have money left. And then I realized where I was actually spending. I was like, I'm spending a fortune on food, spending a fortune on transportation. Like, I wasn't overspending on gas, but I would spend on, taking Ubers because I used to go out for drinks. I would spend on the drinks when I would go out. I would spend on the dinner. I would spend on the Uber coming back home. And thinking I was going to do that once a week, that was more than $25 for one day. And then did it maybe more than once a week. And then did it maybe twice a week or 3 times a week for like a month. That's where a big chunk of my money was going. Another big chunk of my money was, like I said, the Uber Eats and the eating fast food, eating out, and all this kind of stuff, because of not wanting to deal with people that I lived with. So that was an expense that I wasn't accounting for. Like I could say I'll spend this much on groceries, and then I might spend that much on groceries, and then never, never eat the groceries, and keep getting takeout, and it was mostly the food, the food and the hanging out. Those were the two things that were really getting me. Um, and I didn't take the time to um, focus on what to do about it. I didn't take the time to kind of curb my behaviors until I got sick of it. I was like, I got sick of it. Um, One day I think I remember mentioning, that once I borrowed money from my mom to, pay for rent this one time, and I was like, man, like, I think that was the second time I'd ever done that, but I was like, after losing sleep over that and trying to make extra money and like trying to like make things meet and like all the trouble I went through for the few days before once I noticed I wasn't going to make rent, and I still had the option to pay it late, but I didn't want to pay it late because the guy was just obnoxious. And to me, it was kind of like a private thing to be like making a late payment for rent because I would get paid every 2 weeks. And so just the fact that he'd kind of knock on my door about it and like, hey, can you pay the rent kind of thing, and like, or like just he would keep checking about it, even though I was like, I'll give it to you on this date, but he would check about it in a way that was kind of more public. Like he didn't call me on the phone. He was like checking, like say if like, he was knocking on my bedroom door, and like I mentioned, I lived with people who almost never left the house, so there were always people there, and he would be talking like in the hall, like through the door to me, just kind of like, oh, just wanted to check, if you're gonna pay the rent, you said in the next few days, and it got kind of embarrassing to a point where I was like, well, I'm embarrassed to ask my mom, and then I'm embarrassed to ask this guy for an extension to pay the rent late. And so because of that situation, that is mostly what drove me to be a lot more strict with my finances. And from that point, I was like, I never want to have to do this again. I never want to have to, request, that kind of help, from somebody, or, borrow money from friends or family. I never want to do that again. And, just the embarrassment of the situation of it all, of having to be in debt to other people, was enough for me to make me not want to get to a point where I couldn't afford my rent. And it's not like I couldn't, like I went through like years or weeks or months of not being able to pay. It was always like, I want to say maybe tops in my life, maybe 6 times, maybe 6 times. I may have been late 6 times max. Now, I'm not sure about that, but I'm just guessing, because I've lived in about 3 or 4 places. Probably almost every place I lived, I had at least one time when I was not paying on time. And most of the time, it usually wasn't because I was partying. Usually it was because, well, it was a combination of because I was partying, but also because I had some kind of car problem that was a high expense, and then because I had also been overspending and not saving. Like, I was saving as far as retirement, but that wasn't money that I could just be like, hey, I need money tomorrow or in the next 2 days, like, can I withdraw this money? And like, it wasn't like that. Like, with my retirement money, I couldn't just get it right away. Even if it was a loan, I couldn't get it right away. So I think there was a time that I paid off everything using my retirement, and I took out a loan on my retirement, which was a big loss of money, but it actually got things on track for me. Um, but then after that point, it did start to get off track a little bit at a certain point, and then I think that's when I realized I was like, this is a problem. Like it's not how much I make, even though I wasn't making a lot of money. Like at one point, I was making $18 an hour, but I wasn't making a lot of money. My expenses weren't high, but I was spending a lot of money, if that makes sense. Um, and you know, things like embarrassment, things like just, you know, the stress, you know, those things are enough that once I got things kind of organized, I was like, never, never again, never again, never again, you know. Do what it takes to stay out of that, um, out of having to do that again, you know. Um, I'm not saying I've been perfect since those points, but you know, everything else has been more like methodical, planned out. You know, there's been like a strategy attached to it. You know, it wasn't just like, okay, I'll take this money out, and then just like figure it out later. You know, like I'll take out a loan for $2,000 and pay back $6,000 over 3 years. You know, like that sounds good. You know, like that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You know, it's like, you know, when I look back, I'm like, that's such a waste of money. You know, it's such a waste of money. And you're paying like your hard earned money. Like, it's not like I've ever had like easy jobs, you know? So I was paying like really hard earned money. It was, you know, my jobs have been like really stressful, really demanding. And that was also wearing on my mental health and creating these other impulsive situations. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't take into account is that, you know, you might be in a habit or in a pattern of impulsivity, but, you know, if you don't know where it's coming from, where the behavior is coming from, it's going to be hard to change it. And something like buying Jordans when it's like maybe not the best of ideas, or going out and buying a bunch of drinks for everybody when it's not the best of ideas, or talking to myself here, maybe like renting cars and going up to the mountains for a few days to go snowboarding is maybe not the best of ideas. Some of these things aren't good ideas. You know, it's not a good idea to do. Um, and it's easy to do though. When you know how to do it, it's like it's easy to do. But you know, nobody's gonna tell you don't do it. No one's gonna be like, oh, don't take out this loan. Oh, don't use this credit card. Oh, don't open another line of credit. You know, you have to tell yourself don't do it. Like even in the show with the couples and everything, you know, like those people, you know, they're supposed to be accountable to one another, and they're still not able to adhere to the plan, you know. And it just shows how strong that impulsive spending urge is, you know. Um, One thing I really try, you know, I buy stuff. I'm a victim of Amazon Prime, just like everybody else, you know. But I try not to buy stuff that I won't be able to sell back, you know. I try not to get too deep into expensive purchases or unnecessary purchases if I'm not sure, and then I'm like, you know, I keep the wrapping, I keep the original boxes and everything so I can return it as new. Sometimes I don't even open it. Like I've purchased stuff that I didn't even open before. Um, and you know, it was a good choice not to open it, but it's like stuff like that, and it's like sometimes it's impulsive, sometimes it's like a business move. It's like, okay, I need this gear, this thing for this project or something. Like I was trying to do a project once doing like ASMR or something like that, because I was like, well, maybe it'll relax me while I'm, you know, making content. And I got a mic. It was supposed to be a mic that was like a monitoring mic, and then it didn't really work. You couldn't monitor while recording. You couldn't hear what you were recording. You could only record and then go back and listen to it just like every other mic. Um, but you're supposed to be able to listen with headphones and stuff as you were doing it. And um, I don't know if Propellerhead's Take app still works, but that app, when I was writing music more, that app I used to use to, uh, that app monitors. So it's like, I don't think the app works anymore though, but I could have potentially used something like that or like Smule Sing. That would have been a stupid idea, but like you can use Smule Sing. It monitors because you're supposed to be singing along to the song. I mean, I don't know. It probably has the music track in the background, but maybe there's one that's just blank where you can just talk into it and monitor yourself while you're using the mic. I don't know. Haven't tested it, but yeah, I've purchased stuff that didn't work and I didn't return it, or that mic was just cheap. It wasn't even like $10. It was like $3-4 or something. But I've made purchases, that were not good for my financial health. Um, I'm trying to be honest here. I'm not, trying to make myself look like I'm like the best of the best, but I've definitely seen improvements. It's been a long, long ass time since I've had negative money in my bank. It's been a really long time since I haven't been able to afford something fun, you know, because I did kind of downsize a bit. Like, I don't go out all the time every weekend anymore. Now I go out to like concerts and little trips every so often. And, I've talked about it a little bit, gone to raves and all these other types of events. And actually, strangely, that's cheaper than hanging out 2 or 3 times a week, because it's hard to go out for like $20, especially if you like to be very responsible. Like, I'm not saying that you can't have a drink and drive, but it's like, to me, it's risky, to me, it's a risk. I'd rather just go out and be comfortable and pay the extra like 20 something bucks, 20-30 bucks round trip for Ubers when I'm in San Diego or whatever. When I'm out here in LA, an Uber's usually going to run me about 45 bucks one way. So I don't really do anything like that too much. Like I did in April, the beginning of April, when I went to that rave, and that was like, I was like, I'll splurge this once, but that was not going to be a habit of mine. I was like, I will not make a habit out of this. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of been what I could say. I mean, my 2 cents as far as like how to deal with the impulsivity really is looking at it and really being honest with yourself. Because if, I'm a single person, and, my family is like decent enough that we can like live together and stuff, and like, I've, I've got, enough kind of funds stored away that I can live off of it without having to, be too overwhelmed with how much I'm making every month at the moment, anyways. Um, so I've had a lot of a mental health break lately, pretty much all of 2023, in all honesty. So for like 4 months. But yeah, like, I had to set things up this way. Like, I had to put work into all this other stuff for it to be possible. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and was like, okay, like the reason why I'm living my life this way, the way I'm doing now, is because like I kind of got to like, not like last resort as in like I was in some kind of crisis or anything, but it was kind of like the best of my last resort type of decisions, that I could kind of just go all in and make a lot of extreme moves quick, consecutive months. Let me just bang the stuff out that I need to do with my health, with my mental health, with my, with other parts of just kind of, um, you know, improving certain things, getting things kind of squared away a little bit better. Um, it took a lot, you know. So yeah, like I would say the first step, those are the first steps, you know, just kind of look at your money of what you actually need. Uh, I mean, Dave Ramsey goes as far as to say, you know, and you know, this isn't financial advice. It's, you know, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell people what to do, but you know, for the psychology of things, if people are interested in looking at that, it's like, you know, look at how much you actually need. You know, how much is your rent? How much is your food? How much is your water? How much is it to keep the lights and the electricity on, to be able to cook food at your house, and, you know, to get food, not just any food, healthy food, but it doesn't have to be like, you know, necessarily so healthy that you're like breaking your wallet, you know, like it could be organic, vegan, like whatever the heck you want it to be, but I mean, healthy food doesn't have to be like way overly priced, you know? Like, what's that place, like Irwin or whatever those, there's this place that's like super expensive, like even more expensive than Whole Foods. Like, it shouldn't have to be that pricey, you know what I mean? Um, I mean, if you want it to, that's up to you, but you know, it doesn't have to be so cheap either that it's like weird quality, bad quality food that it's like gonna make you sick and like that's gonna mess you up, you know. So you don't want to get really poor quality stuff either. But like you can be frugal and still eat healthy and be healthy and live healthy without having to, you know, have everything name brand. Um, like you don't need like Gucci socks and underwear when you go shop for new stuff, you know. It's like you can go get like a pack of Hanes, you know what I mean? Like Walmart, Hanes brands, Russell, like whatever brands of stuff you buy, you know, it doesn't have to be like tip top everything. Like you might feel more confident and better about yourself sometimes, you know, when you have something a little special on, or something that costs more, or something that like people associate it with a certain status. And there's nothing wrong with looking your best. There's nothing wrong with wanting people to like see something you have on and be like, ooh, like that looks cute, or that's like nice, or like, you know, like I'm not saying don't do anything that attracts people to you, but you know, there are times when it's like, okay, like some decisions just aren't gonna cut it, you know. Some choices just aren't gonna be the best for what you're trying to actually do for yourself. Um, and others might be. Others might be good choices to try out, you know. Like for me, it's like I used to love going out, but it was like, you know, I'm not saying I'm never gonna go out again. The only reason why I'm not going out all the time, honestly, is because I live in LA, and the people who I know locally, I don't really kick it with them like that. And then the people I do want to actually hang out with live so far. It's really hard to kind of, you know, schedule with them. Not that I never see any of them. It's just, it's not like San Diego where it's like 15 minutes to get to either visit friends or to meet up someplace. Like, it's not like a quick thing with people that I'm very like engaged with and very like, you know, have like closer, intimate, current relationships with, you know. I don't have that out here in LA so much as I do in San Diego. Like the people I do know in LA, I'm kind of trying not to be too connected with them because I know I'm leaving and I don't want any excuse to stay here, you know. I don't want any excuse to be like, oh, now I'm attached to this person, or I'm dating this person, or I'm doing this thing with this person, you know. I don't want any reason to have a connection that's gonna make me want to stay longer than when I get my stuff together. I just want to pack my bags and go, you know. I don't want to feel like at all tied down. Um, so yeah, that's one thing. Um, Another thing I would say, um, is yeah, looking at your other than looking at your bank, looking at your finances, figuring out what you need, figuring out what the heck you spend your money on, you know, and what is that attached to? You know, what is it attached to? Like, it took a while for me to figure out why I was spending on Uber Eats and like Jack in the Box and KFC and Taco Bell and Del Taco and Subway and 7-Eleven. And you know, I was like, because it's simple and it's quick, and I share a house with like 5 people or whatever, and you know, the people I share a house with are always, um, you know, the people I share the house with are always cooking. Like, I come home and there's always somebody else in the kitchen. So, or if I'm the only one in the kitchen, people come and try to start to talk to me. And so it's like, I never had my own private space in the kitchen on a consecutive basis to be able to cook food. Um, and, you know, when I'm stressed, when I'm dealing with things, you know, I'm pretty isolative. And so that was really, that still is a big issue for me, you know. And um, it's something that I do spend, you know, a lot of energy having to manage, trying to manage. Sometimes I just can't manage it that well, so I do go buy something, you know, and you know, but it's like, okay, like, it's within moderation. I'm not doing it every day. If I'm not feeling a certain way, I'm not gonna do it. Today I'm gonna order some Instacart because, you know, first of the month, I always make a purchase that I can pay back on my credit card. So today I'm gonna make a purchase, strategically, just for credit building. It's not gonna be very expensive, and it'll probably be available for me to pay it back Tuesday or Wednesday, so I'll pay that back right away. And that's what I'm doing today, you know, as far as purchases. And I did buy lunch out, you know, I did buy a smoothie and a Danish for lunch. And the reason why I purchased that was because I knew I was going to come podcasting, and didn't want to go home first. And also because the coffee shop where I was studying at this morning, I, you know, I'm a customer there, so I should buy something. Like, I don't buy something every day, but I'm like, let me buy something once a week. Because I do come there, and I don't go there every day, but I've been trying to go like Mondays or once a week or so, or just when I need to get out and I need a place with Wi-Fi that's like closer than the library. I'll go there because it's got better hours too. It's open earlier and later than the library, and it's a little more casual. Like, you can kind of eat there and like chill there, and like the library's cool, but I feel like sometimes I just want to be somewhere else, and that's a cool place to just chill at, especially when I've got work to do. I'm a lot better at getting stuff done when I just get out of the house, you know, because then my motivation is like, I don't want to be out all day and get nothing done, because that's a waste of my time, my energy, the effort to get dressed, the effort to, you know, especially if I buy something, it's like, well, I bought something and I got gas, and you know, I had to come here and all this stuff, you know, I'm not gonna wanna not do what I need to do, once I get there. So yeah, but yeah, I feel like those are kind of like some of the major things that come up, you know, like, you know, look at the bank statements, go through them carefully, see where you spent, you know, do it again, you know, don't be too hard on yourself too, because, you know, if you're going to be too hard on yourself, then you're going to start avoiding the process, just so you don't have to deal with yourself being hard on you and having to deal with the aftermath of how you feel. Like, if you make yourself feel bad about, you know, not doing your budget correctly, then it's going to make you not want to budget. It's going to be like another form of something to avoid. So you can't really do that. Like that's definitely something to keep in mind and be careful about. Is not trying to do too much damage. Any damage, but you know, just you got to be easy on yourself somewhat, just talk yourself through it and be like, look, I had something going on this week, something going on last week. That's why I had these expensive charges. I just wanted to feel good. I started, like, this one guy in one of the episodes, that Get Rich episode, like, he was saying how, when he was younger, he could never afford, nice shoes. And, he always was, like, embarrassed about his shoes when he would go out. And so, he didn't really want to, like, like he was kind of like, he was like embarrassed about his what do you call it? He was embarrassed about his finances. I mean, about his shoes. When he would go to school, and he's like, yeah, you can hide like other stuff, but you can't hide your feet, and that's true. It's like, yeah, if you have like socks that are like maybe not new, or like underwear or whatever, or even like a shirt, you can always put a sweater over your shirt, but like, pants, you can't really hide that too good. Shoes, you can't hide that really at all. Like your shoes are going to be out, and he was saying like something along the lines of, his family didn't have really enough or extra where he could either afford something new or better or something like that. Like they didn't have enough for him to like afford what he needed. And so for that reason, later on in life, he's got this issue with buying really nice $120 sneakers. And he would purchase really expensive sneakers. And when he didn't need them, it wasn't like a necessity, and he had a problem with the purchasing of sneakers. Like he got a bunch of jeans once, and he said that he got them for work. But then like the sneakers, the wife was like, okay, well, explain these sneakers. Like, why did you buy those, And that was kind of, like, that was kind of more of the explanation that was given is, he went and bought these sneakers because he, he went and bought the sneakers because he was like, I guess compensating, maybe going through some issues with some memories, and that sounds like hard memories. Those aren't easy memories to deal with, and I do think there is something to past memories that can be triggering, that do kind of seep into current spending habits, which it's subtle, it's so freaking subtle. Like nobody would think I buy this stuff because, not just because it makes me feel good, but because, and that is another thing too, buying stuff because it feels good or it makes somebody feel good. The purchase of it, the having it, thinking about, like in sales, you learn a lot about psychology. And I mean, I've worked in psychology before, but in sales, it's very, I feel like sales is like a very niche psychological topic. Like people don't talk about it that way, but I feel like sales is a very niche psychological topic. And people get involved, in sales, and, if you can create a campaign that touches on this isn't an exhaustive list, but touches on things like what's going to make somebody seem or feel more attractive, for example. Just an example. It's if you can get somebody to see how in the future they could use that item, and how they can visualize having this item, using this item, seeing oh, I really have a crush on this person, and having them like comment like, oh, that looks good on you or something. Just to get a comment like that from a crush, people will spend money on something, you know literally. you know and in sales, if somebody can market something in a way like that, that kind of tells a visual story where somebody can see themselves having an item, using an item, and how it's going to benefit them. And if it's something like about their attractiveness, or sex motivates, or different things like that, like being seen as like successful, um, different things like that, like people definitely will buy something for. I've bought stuff, like I think almost everything I buy, you know, I see it, I see, like, not like in a delusion way, but like I can foresee myself potentially using whatever it is I purchased. Like the microphone I was talking about that didn't work very good, the monitoring microphone. It was a cheap microphone, but I was like, yeah, I could see how if I was making this like you could kind of plan it, and I was like, I could see how if I was making this certain kind of content, the process of it could be relaxing for me. The the viewership or listenership could be motivational to me. I could maybe get really into this and create like a brand and following around it, and practice some of my digital marketing skills and all these kind of things. Like my head went to some direction that like this is a cheap ass crappy product that didn't even work, and my head was already like 5 steps ahead, how I was going to use it, where I was going to use it, when I was going to be doing this, how it would make me feel. Like nothing in the in nothing said anything about that, and it didn't even work, and so when you think about it, a lot of times, unless it's like really really super impulsive, a lot of times when you're thinking through something, looking at reviews, looking at the actual item, once you have a story in your mind where you can tell yourself how you're going to use something, that you already know that you are going to convince yourself probably to get it. And so, that's one step, to try to avoid. If you can't, control the spending, maybe try to control the story making. Uh, try to control the visualization process, because visualization is powerful. It will make you spend and buy stuff that you had no plan to spend or buy, or even you didn't even know that you even wanted, or never even thought that you needed it, and you might not even need it, and you might not have actually wanted it, and you might get it and you might never use it. So it's like, and I know that I know what I'm talking about, because I hardly buy anything, like actual physical stuff. Like I hardly buy physical stuff other than like food. I'm not super into clothes. I'm not super into anything. I like events and stuff. And that's kind of my, I know that I'm going to have fun at an event, like I get pumped up about it, and, that's my thing to spend money on. Like, I'm not really into like gear too. Like I am, but I can do without it. I can do without it. I can do without belongings. But I like events. I like sharing those events with people and having like really fun, pumped up times with people. I like to party. I like to party. But not so much like, I wouldn't say that I'm not into any substances of any kind, because that would be a lie. But usually when it comes to me using substances of any kind, it's usually for some kind of a, it's not always recreational. For me, it's more like mental health, helpful in that way, for medicinal purposes. But then, sometimes like with cannabis products, I will get stoned. Like, you don't have to get stoned, but I will because I like it. Or with alcohol, alcohol is purely recreational for me when I do decide to use it. And, I wouldn't say that I completely avoid that either. So I, I, yeah, like, I think, I mean, it's a good idea to try to pay attention to, you know, the spending, uh, pay attention to expenses, pay attention to the story, pay attention to how much you actually need to spend. And if you don't need something, return it. Take it back. At least you'll get most or some of your money back. And it can be hard. It could feel like a loss, but it's like, hey, I'd rather have half of $120 on a pair of sneakers that I don't really need than have no money. I'd rather have 60 than zero and a pair of sneakers just sitting in a box. You know what I mean? It's like, and then what does that do? Eventually you have all this stuff. A lot of people take all their stuff to storage. It's like, I refuse to have storage. I refuse. I refuse. I'm like, I refuse. If I have storage, that means I have too much stuff. And I'm not talking about people who are between moving or people who once had a large place and had to downsize to something small. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who had plenty of space, still have plenty of space, filled up plenty of space, and then decided to store a bunch of stuff that they likely don't need. I mean, if you have stuff that made it to storage, you're probably not using it every day. And if you're not using it regularly and it doesn't have sentimental value, you can probably get rid of it. And if you need another one, get another one. And that's kind of how I've done things. For me, that's worked. Just get rid of the majority of all my stuff. And, if I'm not using it, and then if I need another one, I'll get another one. you know. There's an item I bought a couple times. I bought the Native Instruments Machine Micro. It's a drum machine that I love with a passion, but I didn't really use it too often. So I got one when I first started grad school, and then at a certain point I was selling back stuff because I needed money at some point. And then I got another one right when I started this break. I don't know if it was right when I started this break or like it was kind of my reward. No, it was my birthday reward to myself last year. After I went to the concert, it arrived, it got shipped to me. So I purchased that, and then the Wi-Fi was so slow that I couldn't really use it, so I returned it. But that's an item just like almost $250 or something. And for me, that was a lot of money, you know. That's not a cheap item. And as much as I still want one and I want another one, I sold it back, you know, because I was like, I don't really need this, you know. I'm not using it every day, and, you know, I can't even use it. So before the deadline ran out, I sold it back because I was like, well, I can't really properly use it with the Wi-Fi as crappy as it is, because the software, you know, I couldn't basically use it. I wanted to make live music, like live beats, like electronic, but I can't do it without being able to use the software, and so I wasn't able to really use it properly, so I just sold it back. But, you know, it's just something that I like. It's something that I would use if the Wi-Fi could handle it, but it's not something that I do use. And I have other instruments and other things that I can use, and so I don't, you know, it wasn't a necessity. I don't not have any instruments. If I want to create music, I can do it. And so stuff like that. It's kind of hard to pinpoint sometimes, but yeah, stuff like that is definitely a bit of a challenging set of stuff to try to navigate. Um, but try it out, see what you think, see how you feel. Um, it's not easy, but it's also not easy being broke. It's also not easy having debt. None of it's easy. It's not easy to avoid impulsive spending. It's not easy to stick to a budget and not get like sucked in to wanting or needing certain things. And it's not easy to have impulse control. And it's not easy to not have, you know, emotional issues come up and mess up your other, plans. The way I see emotional issues, emotional psychological issues, and it doesn't have to be like a formal diagnosis of some severe disorder or something, or lifetime medications or injectables or anything like that. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It's like every now and then you need a break. Every now and then you get stressed. Every now and then you kind of just need more support than what you may have, or you might just need, you might just have a little bit, that you might need. And you might have to be kind of the one that is going to make the decisions for yourself. There aren't really a lot of people that can make those decisions for you. Even if you're in a couple, your partner can't decide for you. Even if you're having separate accounts, nobody else can decide for you how you're going to spend your money. Yeah, like it ain't easy. It ain't easy. I know it's not easy, but you got to find the motivation somewhere, and sometimes the motivation can be from the negative, sometimes it can be from the positive. I like having money in my account. I like looking at my bank and seeing money. That's fun. That to me is great. I'm like, yes, there's money in there. I like to check my other accounts and see money. I don't like to see red numbers or negative this or negative that. Like, I like to see, that in there. And, for me, that's motivation. For me, avoiding embarrassment of bad money management and having to be open with other people about that situation that I'm dealing with. That's not something that I want to deal with. I don't want to deal with people being in my business about how I spend or what I spend on. I don't want to deal with people, dealing with me. I don't want to deal with people knowing those things about me, because to me it's a private thing. Like, you don't really want everybody involved in that part of your life. Most people don't want everyone involved in that part of their life. And so, yeah, like yeah, I would encourage people to give it a try, and at the very least, try to see if you can connect stress to spending. How you spend when you're stressed. Because if you can do at least that, you'll get pretty far. Um, to towards kind of figuring out what you need to do for yourself. And with that, I might post the dailies after this. I think I have to do the 29th and the 30th, so I'll post that. And it's a lengthy one. All right, guys, starting out this morning talking about how my Saturday went for the most part. So, Saturday, Saturday, April 29th of 2023, I was pretty motivated to, kind of start wanting to get things a little bit more focused. I did kind of curb my sleep a little bit. In all honesty, I think cannabis products work better for me than melatonin. Melatonin leaves me super groggy. But I don't think I want necessarily THC in my system all the time. But yeah, I'll definitely be switching out from melatonin for a while. I feel like it was definitely making my mornings difficult, and I don't really want that. So, for now, I've kind of switched over to, some nighttime cannabis products. I just feel better when I wake up, and I feel like when I fall asleep, I'm kind of like, it's just a little smoother. Like, it's different, but I feel like I don't know, it's kind of a good change. I don't really know exactly what it'll be like for every night or what. Like, I haven't really decided that yet, but anyways, yeah, I really wanted to spend Saturday studying, because that's kind of something I enjoy doing Saturdays. So, on Saturday, I was kind of up early, around 5:30 a.m. Definitely my mind was racing a lot. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, and I did have some coffee, I think. No, I had some C4, and then I had coffee after, a little bit of coffee after that. So, yeah, I did some yoga and stretching. I was watching this Lex Friedman Scientology video with that guy, Smith Levin. I can't remember his first name, but I'd seen an interview with him before, and I thought I'd seen that one with Lex Friedman, but I guess I hadn't. So, as far as what I've been studying with, like, about different religious beliefs and cults and stuff like that, I kind of delved into that. Didn't finish it all yet, but I'll get there. Worked out some outlines for some content related to some spirituality and religion topics. And kind of have an experiment I'm doing regarding internet use, studying internet use, kind of using myself as a guinea pig in a way. But yeah, I was enjoying doing a lot of thinking yesterday, and I'd kind of like to continue doing that. And it was weird. Like, I spent the Saturday night in, and I was like, at first I was like, I want to go out. And then I was like, I don't. I just want to stay in and read the stuff I was reading, and kind of just relax. And maybe that's kind of what I needed. Because I felt pretty good this morning. So that's nice. And I've been doing a lot of working on my thoughts and my energy, both mentally and emotionally, particularly when it comes to things like being kind of easily irritable, and just kind of how I think about the things that I have pending in the future. Sometimes, like, I've noticed that that's definitely sometimes a challenge to kind of get up and be like, oh, now I have to deal with this, or just having my mind feel like it's just all over the place, and not feeling like I'm getting, relaxation during the day. Like, just I've been a little overwhelmed here and there lately. Like, it's not so consistent that I can say it's like every day, but definitely, those days during last week, when my sleep was kind of poor, I definitely noticed it then. But I've been really getting out of the house a whole lot more lately too, just because, kind of stir crazy kind of thing. Like, I get a little, I'm indoors all the day, and so I'm trying to get out for like 2 to 4 hours and spend that time podcasting. I just don't know how it's gonna look during summer, because right now it's April, we're coming up on May, so like May and June we tend to get a lot of gray weather, which is nice when you kind of like to be outside when it's not like freezing cold, but it's also not too hot, and so that is something kind of nice. Even though it's kind of like a teaser, it's like you come out of winter and then it's like you have like some gray months, but I'll take it. If it's not raining, I will take it. Like, I hated all that rain. But I'm definitely, slowing down, trying to be more intentional with planning. Today I'm drinking cacao with MCT oil. I might have a mushroom microdose day, but I don't know what day that's gonna be. Maybe Mondays. But yeah, Wednesdays and Thursdays tend to be like reassessment type days for me. Like, going deeper on like kind of like forcing self-care and relaxation. And I mean, Fridays and Saturdays are that way too, but I feel like Friday I'm already wiped out, and then Saturday I'm just trying to like get things on track, and get my headspace somewhere that's not where it normally is during the week. Just focusing on things that kind of matter to me and things I want to study, and just getting further ahead, learning about stuff that has nothing to do with like career or school or class or anything connected to like really the daily grind of things. In a way, just trying to like even things out that way. But I've definitely been enjoying reading, listening to podcasts too, but reading, that's something I sometimes get away from. And I'm, trying to I'm seeing how this goes with this project of limiting my phone time. It's not really going to be limiting per se, but more so having more intention behind it. So, for example, I have some Patreon subscriptions like Jade Fox. I know she has some new vlog content out that I want to watch. There's also some, I want to finish that video, that Lex Friedman video. There's stuff I'm reading, there's stuff I'm studying about. I want to finish that, or start into more of it, even if I can't finish it all today. Like, I probably can't finish it all today, honestly. But I'm kind of going down this bit of a rabbit hole of learning. Like, I kind of do that sometimes. I take topics and just kind of keep building on kind of whatever it's connected to. So I'll probably spend some time doing that too. And yeah, that'll kind of keep me entertained and feeling kind of fulfilled on that end. But I want to see if I can pick times when I'm gonna look at my phone, as far as like Instagram, checking emails. Emails are kind of an annoying thing because it's like I check them, but it's like usually it's not that much of importance, but because there's always that like notification of how many messages I've missed, I just get annoyed that there's all those messages missed, and so I tend to check it. But so yeah, it's 8:02 a.m. on Sunday. I'm gonna kind of get on with my morning because I don't want to spend too much time. Check the weather real quick. The weather is gonna kind of maybe determine when I go out from the house today. So it's gonna be cloudy till about 10. Cloudy again around 3. Cloudy at night. The high today is going to be 66, so it's not going to be too hot. So I might go down to the beach. Like, I don't always record at the beach, but I like it because at least it's nice scenery. And if I do want to get out and like take a walk and stuff, or go jump in the water or whatever, it's easy to do. And it looks like Thursday we're going to have rain. It's like 50%. Yeah, pretty much till next Tuesday, our weather's going to be in the low to mid 50s to the low to mid 60s. And then next Tuesday, we're going to get a spike to like 73 degrees. So I do need to figure out what I'm doing for like exercise. Yesterday I did get a lot of stretching in, but I did have some like soreness in my shoulders. So I want to look into that and see like what the heck that was all about. And yeah, so that's about it as far as just kind of what I've been up to. Thanks for listening. All right. I don't know if I posted the daily for April 29, but I recorded it, apparently. I basically lounged Sunday. It was a gloomy weather day. I didn't even I didn't even get up and get out or anything. No exercise, nothing. I lounged. Pretty much all day lounged. Didn't have any caffeine. No coffee. I may have had cacao. Can't remember. I didn't write it down, so I really don't remember. Was kind of sticking a little bit to my intentional internet use. And so that's kind of all I did for that day, for Sunday. Started rewatching that Netflix series, Hollywood. It's kind of funny because I don't remember it at all. I kind of remember like major themes, but no details. But yeah, I kind of wanted to start my week out real slow. You know, at first I was like, I need to go to the gym, and like, then I was like, I mean, I did stretch, but not even like a full yoga set or anything. Probably like 5 minutes of just like stretching out my hips a little bit, just a little bit. While I was watching the most updated of Mac and Jimmy's YouTube episodes. Yeah, I really didn't get up to much. Just watched stuff online. Had an edible of about 5 milligrams at about 5:30 p.m. Maybe it was before that. No, it was before that. It was like around 3 p.m. I remember, because I was like, I want it to kick in for dinner so that I don't end up way overeating, which I did overeat. But I overate. Let me see. I had some nachos in the afternoon, which I didn't need to have, but I had them anyways. I had some Cheetos and like 3 pieces of dark chocolate. That Ghana dark chocolate from the Japanese market. I had 3 pieces of that, which is too much, but whatever. But that was my munchies attack. So yeah, unhealthy, but it could have been worse. Otherwise, my meals were healthy other than that. But I would say those things, those snacks combined, those were not healthy choices of mine in the afternoon and evening, but kind of like whatever. It wasn't like excessive. I didn't eat like half of a pizza or like a whole box of donuts or anything. So like it was like moderation of unhealthy snacking, just snacking. Yeah. So I was able to kind of easily deal with the internet usage and be kind of more intentional, even though there were a couple times I did find myself scrolling just aimlessly, but it wasn't like every time I went online. And there were a couple times I automatically clicked on my app for what do you call it, the app, what's the freaking app called? Like the email app or like Instagram. I just found myself like clicking it. Like, why am I clicking my email? Like, I don't have that much email that's ever important. Like, rarely. The only emails I ever really want to see are from my brother. The rest of the emails I get are just never anything of importance. So yeah. Well, that's all I really have to say for Sunday, the 30th. I'm recording this now, the first day of May morning. I already did one podcast episode of one of the podcasts at like around 6 something a.m. I started doing that. So I'm back to my early morning schedule, I guess, which is good. Because last night I went to sleep. I was falling asleep before 9, and I probably went to sleep before 10 p.m., but I'm not 100% sure. I woke up before 5, and I felt fine around 5. My energy was dipping just before 7, but now that I have a little caffeine in me, I feel pretty good, so alrighty. That's all I really have to say for that update. Not really too much to say.